Welcome to the 2021 Justice Summit. My name is Peter Lucas, and I'll be setting some context for our time here together. The theme of this year's Justice Summit is Care for Our Common Home, challenging throwaway culture. Although we are part of different local communities, we are all global citizens with a shared mission. As a Jesuit school, we are called to bring that universal apostolic preferences to life, those areas of study of the Society of Jesus for the near future. One way that we can do this is by living out the mission in collaboration for caring for our common home. In the encyclical Laudato Si, Pope Francis invites us to challenge the throwaway culture as a way to care for creation. The throwaway culture addresses our tendency to be wasteful out of convenience. Our excessive consumerism leads to wastefulness. The pervasive attitude of taking what is easy and throwing away things that are no longer useful or that can be easily replaced. This mindset can even develop beyond the environment and affect the way that we can interact and treat other people. Our Ignatian tradition empowers us to see God in all things. When we see God in the earth and all its resources, in one another and in the uniqueness of each individual, we are moved to care, to take action, and to show love of God and our neighbors. Our speakers today will share examples of what exactly this action looks like. They are people who have answered the call to care for creation. As we listen, learn, pray, and take action, let's remember that whether it be cleaning a stream, planting a tree, even turning off a light, all is cherishing life, the gift from God who loves us.
A Prayer for Our Earth by Pope Francis. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace.
Our first speaker is Sasha Adkins from the Institute of Environmental Sustainability at Loyola University, Chicago. Ms. Adkins found their way to environmental health through a circuitous path that involved apprenticing with home-birth midwives, developing a health program for migrant farm workers, and working on HIV prevention with a small AIDS service organization. Along the way, they became fascinated with plastics and their influence on the surrounding environments and people. They earned a Master's of Public Health and International Health from Oregon State University and a PhD in Environmental Studies from Antioch University, New Hampshire. Ms. Adkins' research includes studying plastics as both a toxicology problem, looking at the absorption of toxicants to plastic marine debris, and as a spiritual problem, looking at the consequences of disposable culture on our relationships to ourselves, to each other, and to the planet. They also work on incorporating anti-racist pedagogy into science courses. Their book, From Disposable Culture to Disposable People, The Unintended Consequences of Plastics, addresses how the problem of plastics is a symptom of the broader problem of our disposable culture, a culture where we treat objects, each other, and ourselves as disposable. We are honored to have Ms. Sasha Adkins join us live today and help challenge our idea of a throwaway culture. Students, there will be a short question and answer after the presentation, so write down any questions you may want to ask at the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you, Ms. Sasha Adkins.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm honored to be here with you all today to discuss the problems with plastics and with throwaway culture. For many of us, we first thought of the problem with plastics as a problem in the oceans. I know that I did. I grew up living on a sailboat. I spent 7 years with my parents living on a sailboat in the Atlantic Ocean, sailing around, and the ocean was my spiritual home. I always thought heaven was under the water, not in the sky. And so it broke my heart when I saw the coral reefs dying and pictures like this one of birds that were killed by ingesting plastics. In my doctoral program, I actually did a necropsy of a juvenile black-footed albatross. We cut the bird open. It had been killed by longline fishing and then donated to us. And we wanted to see what was inside the bird. And there were pen caps and little plastic toys. And even if it hadn't been killed by the longline fishing boat, it probably wouldn't have lived very long. So this was horrible. And there were pictures of whales and fish full of plastic. But I didn't realize at that time how serious the problem was. It's also in the air. There was a study in the Pyrenees Mountains, which is away from industry and any point sources, and there's still micro and nanoplastics in the air. There's actually more plastic in the air inside your classroom and inside your home. The rainwater has microplastics. Perhaps you can see the blue thread in the center right bottom of this image from a microscope. That comes from synthetic clothing. So anything you're wearing that's nylon, polyester, acrylic, spandex, lycra, all of that is shedding tiny fibers all the time, and it makes its way into the rain. Even our soil and our food is now contaminated with micro and nanoplastics. And so it's not surprising that when human stools were studied, microplastics were found in all of the samples. They've been found in placenta on the baby side. And one study quantifies the amount of plastic that we eat as the equivalent of a credit card. However, for bottle-fed babies, they're getting 2,000 credit cards a week, 2,000 times more a day than the rest of us. And that's because a lot of new parents heat milk in plastic bottles. So it's not just a problem with the oceans, and it's not just a problem with humans, it's both. Whatever's harming the ecosystem is also harming us. And so I started studying how we create trash, what's going on. And there was this problem of away, thinking that we could throw things away and they would disappear. But in fact, we only really have 3 options once we've decided to think of something as waste. We can move it around, displacement across space. This would be like if I come to you and say, hey, I'm going to clean my room. Can I shove it all under your bed? I suspect most of you would say no. How many people do you see in this photograph? I see 7 people. The people who also are invisible to many of us with privilege who make their living going through the trash as waste pickers, moving trash around. Here's another idea that someone had. We have all of these used tires that have gone flat, that won't hold air anymore. So the idea was that they could dump 1 million of these tires off the coast of Miami in the Atlantic Ocean, and that this would somehow entice the fish. It would be an artificial reef habitat. One problem with this, besides what is self-evident, is that the kind of plastic that these tires are made of is styrene butadiene black copolymer, and it concentrates mercury, according to my research. So when the fish make their home here, they nibble on the tires, and then the mercury is transferred, more concentrated, into the food web. So we look at this and we think, oh, that's terrible. Why would we dump all this trash in the ocean on purpose? But anywhere we dump it, we're just moving it around in space. The other solution that people have come up with is what I call displacement across media. In this case, media means moving between the air and the soil and the water. So we take a solid waste problem and we burn it and we make an air pollution problem. Maybe there's a smokestack filter and that fills with toxicants, poisons, and then we have to do something with that. And the ash is still a solid waste problem. So we're not getting rid of it, we're just moving it around. And of course, the other solution is displacement across time. Bury it in a mountain, in a salt cavern, in these 50-gallon barrels, and wait for another generation to figure out what to do with it. I'm sorry that my generation is doing that to you. That isn't fair. And of course, on Earth Day, you're being told that the solution is to recycle. I'm going to tell you that that's probably not an ethical solution. The turtle and I have a message today that recycling, in quotes, plastics is immoral. Because the point of recycling is not to reduce your waste, it's to reduce your guilt. You don't feel as bad because I've had students tell me, oh, it's okay, I put it in the blue bin, so I can keep wasting all of this single-use plastic. That's what the blue bin's designed for. And that's not right. Plastics can only be downcycled. You can't make plastic from a bottle into a bottle into a bottle like you could with glass or aluminum. Each time it goes through the cycle, it gets degraded. So here's an example. This is a road made with waste plastic. And so maybe single-use plastic water bottles get made into the road. And people are very excited about this and say, we're keeping it out of the environment. What's actually happening, though, is as this person is walking along the road and as cars or bicycles pass along the road, it will rub off tiny, tiny particles of plastic that are then blown around in the air, washed into waterways. And because they're so tiny, it's very easy for them to be taken up into the biota, which is the fancy word for all of the living things, plants and animals and people. And it's not reducing the number of new single-use plastic bottles, is it? People just feel better because it's been made into a road and they don't stop to examine what their consumption means. And sometimes they call it thermal recycling, and what that means is it's burned and then electricity is harnessed from the fire, or the heat from the fire is used to heat buildings. But again, it's not reducing our demand for new plastics. So I've written about what I call toxic colonialism. When we're moving trash through space, especially our plastics recycling gets moved around the planet. And in many cases, it's transferred to Southeast Asia. This still is from a movie called Plastics China, where the little girl was growing up and that baby was born on a pile of plastic trash that came from the US. China has stopped taking our plastics, and so now it's going to Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and other economically vulnerable countries. And that, again, is like me paying you to put my garbage under your bed. Not fair. And the workers who handle our trash in the US remain invisible. This is a young woman in the Philippines who's not going to school because she has to make money by trying to find bits of trash that can be resold. There is an international treaty called the Basel Convention that as of 2019 includes plastics, and the Basel Convention says that it's not right for wealthy countries to dump their trash, especially hazardous waste, including plastics, in other countries. But the United States has not ratified and therefore does not follow the Basel Convention. So this isn't just a trash problem or a litter problem. It's not just about what do you do with it when you throw it away. Plastics are a problem from the moment they are created. This is an X-ray of the hands of a worker who makes a kind of plastic called PVC. And you can see the black lines at the fingertips. The bones are being resorbed. So it's like the bones are dissolving inside that worker's hands from contact with the chemicals that make up these plastics. There are so many kinds of illnesses that occur in workers who handle our plastics and manufacture the chemicals that make up our plastics. And think of the communities around them. These children are playing, so they're working hard and breathing heavy, all that smoke from the plastics factory here in Louisiana. So what can we do about this? No, it's not enough to put a filter in your washing machine. Instead, choose natural fibers, hemp, bamboo, silk, linen, wool, and organic cotton when you can. Because the plastic microfibers that thousands are released every time you wash a synthetic garment, those are one of the biggest sources of plastics into our environment. And I use my own cutlery, my own bowl, and my own water bottle when I go out. I use a charcoal Kishu filter in my water bottle so that I can refill it without worrying. The Kishu will absorb lead and other metals and contaminants and make the water taste great. I have a wooden toothbrush, bamboo with natural bristles, stainless steel razor. I use bar soap even for washing my dishes in the sink, and I'm trying every way that I can to reduce the use of single-use plastic. But Beth Terry's really good at it, and I loved her book, Plastic Free, How I Kicked the Plastic Habit and How You Can Too. She's got lots of great ideas in that book, and she's also in the DC, Baltimore area. There's some innovations that I'm pretty excited about. These are spoons that you can eat when you're done using them. They're delicious and they are vegan and low calorie. Right now, it's too expensive for this to be a practical option for your cafeteria, but start thinking in these creative directions. Here's another idea where you can make plates out of leaves and they're completely compostable. You've got to be careful with some compostable products because they have non-stick oil-proofing, waterproofing chemicals called PFAS in them, and those are dangerous in our compost. So find PFAS free and help move us from a linear economy where we take things and produce them and distribute them, consume them and waste them, into a circular economy, which is what God designed nature to be. There is no waste. Whatever is left over from one process becomes the raw ingredients for another process. We can think about reusables. In India, there's a wonderful system of using stainless steel containers to deliver lunches. And those containers are collected and washed and taken back to be refilled, creating jobs for folks, Why can't we move in this direction? There's some initiatives here in the US to start using reusable containers to deliver your ice cream and your toothpaste. And then when you put those out in a container, the mail carrier will pick them up. They'll go back to the store and they'll be sterilized and reused. There's the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act at the federal level that I urge you to support. But the most important message I have today, and this is my final slide, is that it's not just a problem of material objects, it's a spiritual problem. And so we have to stop thinking of God's creation as trash, because when we think of things as only useful while they serve us, we start thinking of ourselves and each other as only instrumentally valuable. And we are all inherently valuable. So to retrain myself, I make a habit whenever possible of not using disposables so that I remind myself not to throw anything away. I do throw away my cat litter, but when it's possible, reminding myself that even if I can't see the beauty or the value in someone or something, if I can see through God's eyes, I can start to see how everything has worth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Atkins, for your information, for the inspiring words. We're so grateful for your presence today. So students, we have a few minutes for some questions. At this time, if you'd like to submit your questions through the Q&A feature, you can ask your homeroom teacher to type the question in. Virtual students, feel free to use the Q&A as well. Try to include your name and your grade in the question, and then we'll have a few minutes. We'll take a little break. You'll see a blue screen while we compile the questions and submit the questions to Ms. Atkins at this point. So thank you, and hopefully students, you have some great questions. Okay, the question.
Are you ready for me to answer the question?
Sasha, I'm gonna start posting. Can you see?
I see that there are 17 new questions. Lots of them are about the spoon. Should I start with that? Okay. There are actually different spoons that have been baked. Some of them are sweet and some of them are savory. There's different recipes. So it depends if you want to use your spoon to eat a main course or if you want to use your spoon to eat a dessert. So actually, it might be fun to find some of those recipes and try baking your own spoons. See if you can do it from local ingredients. See if you can do it inexpensively and make them taste good. The ones that I showed you from the Amazon site, I was just borrowing that photograph. I don't necessarily think you need to buy them from Amazon. So yeah, they're edible. Shall I continue with the other questions?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I love this question. Can you discuss the relationship between the petroleum industry and plastics? Perfect. So plastics are subsidizing the petroleum industry. They're making it more profitable to extract oil and gas. And right now we're seeing a lot of investment in new plastic manufacturing facilities in Appalachia and Ohio River areas, Ohio, Louisiana. Formosa wants to put in another plastics factory because they're trusting that even if people reduce their consumption of fuel, they will continue to use single-use plastics. So if you want to help slow down climate change, use less plastic. You're hitting the oil and gas industry when you do. There are plant-based plastics, but that's a whole nother topic and they're not necessarily safer. Most of the additives that are in those are still made from petrochemicals. So plastics, petrochemical industry tied together here. Why can we ship our trash into space? Yeah, I don't think that the answer is to start contaminating other environments, to find new environments to contaminate. And the cost of launching a rocket in terms of environmental cost, of using all that fuel and all the greenhouse gas emissions just to get rid of waste, just doesn't make sense to me. So I think I see some questions about what do we do with the waste we already have? I think the biggest question is how do we stop producing more of it? So think of it if your bathtub is overflowing. It's not how to drain it out with a teaspoon into buckets so that you can carry the water outside. The first thing you have to do is turn off the tap, right? You've got to stop producing all this waste. The waste that we already have, my instinct would be to find the utility in it, to find the beauty in it. Are there ways that we can reclaim it and not think of it as waste anymore? I know that sometimes in India in particular, they're going through landfills and pulling out plastics, turning them into fuel. That's moving the problem from solid waste into air pollution, but still, if it's reducing the need for more drilling for oil and natural gas, maybe it's a bridge solution, I'm not sure. But we've got to stop producing the trash. I see that Ty Phillips in grade 10 says, would it be possible or ethical to send the trash into space? Yeah, not a fan of that idea, actually. Are there any long or short-term health problems that result from consuming the microplastics? That's a great question, Sean. We know for a fact that certain monomers, which are the building blocks of plastic, are very toxic. BPA, for example, at the parts per trillion level, can cause harm not only to the person exposed, but to future generations. Another monomer that's toxic is styrene, which is what makes polystyrene and styrofoam. Another is vinyl chloride. You saw the workers' hands from handling vinyl chloride. It also causes a rare liver cancer, angiosarcoma of the liver. So in these cases, we know that the building blocks of the plastic themselves are extremely dangerous. We know that a lot of the additives in plastic are quite toxic. What scientists are debating now is there a safe amount of plastic in your body? How much is okay? My position on that is like, it's closer to lead. There is no safe amount of lead in your body. And by the way, lead, organo-lead, is used as a heat stabilizer in number 3 PVC plastic. So I just don't think that there's a safe amount of plastic in your body. But it will depend on what kind of plastic it is and what the additives are. And that's something that the companies don't tell you. You can't find a label that tells you what the additives are in your plastic. It's a proprietary information, a trade secret. So even as scientists, those of us who are doing research, we order plastics from the same manufacturer, the same type of plastic to study, and every time we get it, we get a different batch with different additives, and it creates different results in the studies. So it's going to be very difficult for us to definitively prove. It will probably take a few more decades until we say, oops, yes, it's really toxic at any level and we shouldn't have it in our bodies. Don't wait until that evidence is definitive. We need to stop producing toxic single-use plastics right now.
Sasha, we have time for about 1 or 2 more questions.
Thank you. How are kids supposed to help if our parents are the ones making the decisions, especially for natural items that are more expensive? Thank you, Tucker. I would say that a lot of the products that I use are actually saving me money. I use baking soda and apple cider vinegar, for example, as shampoo and as conditioner. And so I'm reducing a lot of the packaging that I otherwise would be buying. I use that for cleaning as well. You can save a ton of money that way. So talk to your parents about why you're concerned and remind them that you don't need to buy into all the fancy marketing, that you can find homemade solutions that have less packaging and cost less money. And finally, William Brandenburg's question, if you want to get involved, are there organizations you recommend we get involved with? I would say the Plastics Pollution Coalition is a great organization that is a gateway. It has a lot of different organizations as members, and they will definitely help you find ways to volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sasha. I hope this has been informative for everyone, and I will try to pass along some of these other questions, and maybe she can respond by email. We thank you for your attention, and we have a few more speakers that we'd like to present this morning as well.
Harbor Initiative at the Waterfront Partnership of Baltimore, where he's worked since 2011. He has a master's in community planning with a concentration in environmental planning from the University of Maryland College Park. He loves hiking, kayaking, and putting googly eyes on inanimate objects. Today, he's going to tell us about his work with the Waterfront Partnership and their mission for a clean, healthy harbor and city.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Lindquist, and I am the director of the Healthy Harbor Initiative at the Waterfront Partnership of Baltimore. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in today's Justice Summit. I'm looking forward to talking to you about my work to clean up and restore the Baltimore Harbor. So let's get started. Now, you don't know me, but you may be familiar with a good friend of mine. His name is Mr. Trash Wheel, and Mr. Trash Wheel is a project that I helped to bring to life 7 years ago. Since that time, we've picked up over 1,600 tons of trash and debris from the Baltimore Harbor and built 3 additional trash wheels, Professor Trash Wheel, Captain Trash Wheel, and Gwenda the Good Wheel of the West, who will be installed next month at the mouth of the Gwens Falls. Now, I didn't always know that I would one day become the overlord of multiple famous googly-eyed trash interceptors, and I never dreamed that I would get to work on a project that would make it into the Guinness Book of World Records. But truth be told, when I was your age, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I grew up surrounded by water. Central New York State is renowned for its lakes, its gorges, and waterfalls. In fact, there are over 150 waterfalls within 10 miles of my hometown. So I loved going on hikes with my friends and being a silly, creative kid. And I never gave a single thought to how I might turn any of that into a career as an adult. But eventually, I had to figure something out, as we all do. So I started talking to the adults in my life about their career paths, which I highly recommend. I spoke to an uncle of mine who was a lawyer, and he told me, Adam, whatever you do, do not become a lawyer. Very helpful. And in fact, I did not become a lawyer. But it was the mother of a friend of mine who worked as a city planner that really caught my interest. She told me that cities can be planned in ways that protect people from pollution and natural disasters, that are walkable and have good transit options, that are built to ensure communities have access to nature. And I found these ideas really exciting. And I wanted to make the world a better place, and urban planning seemed like the way to do it. And then in 2005, a hurricane named Katrina hit the city of New Orleans. And the world watched as the impact of poor city planning played out on national television. We witnessed the raw power of nature. We learned the importance of planning for storms and climate change, and saw the way that communities of color were disproportionately impacted by natural disasters. And I decided I wanted to be part of the solution. I wanted to help cities build better and smarter, and to lift up underserved communities to make them part of the conversation when it came to planning for the future of their neighborhoods. So in 2011, I took a job with the Waterfront Partnership of Baltimore, where I was put in charge of their Healthy Harbor initiative, which aimed to clean up the Baltimore Harbor and make it safe again for people and animals. And it couldn't have come at a better time. Something needed to be done because the fish in the harbor were literally dying from the pollution and lack of oxygen in the water. And the water didn't look great either. There was far too much trash floating on the surface. Some days, it looked like you could walk across the harbor just walking on the trash that was floating in the water. So my central question became, how do we plan for a better future for the Baltimore Harbor? Well, the health of our harbor is a reflection of the health of our city and our communities, because the trash in the harbor doesn't come from people just throwing it into the water. Most of it gets carried by wind and rain off of our streets and alleys and into storm drains, which flow unfiltered into our streams and harbor. So if you want a clean harbor, you need to start with clean communities. That's why we launched the Alley Makeover Program. With this program, we work with residents to identify and lift up community leaders. We provide community leaders with the resources they need to clean up the alleys behind their homes. We provide them with tools, trash bags, and connect them to city resources. We help them host block parties to get the community excited about taking back their alley. We used to give away recycling bins until Mayor Scott announced his new plan to provide a free recycling bin to every city resident, which we are super excited about. And once the alleys were clean, we would hire a local artist to paint a mural in the alley, reminding residents of the connection their community has to the harbor and the Chesapeake Bay. Here's one block that decided to paint their entire alley to represent the buried stream that still flows beneath their homes. So that's what we're doing to help clean up our communities. But when trash does make it into our streams and harbor, we wanted to do something to clean it up there as well. That's why in 2014, we installed Mr. Trash Wheel, the world's first sustainably powered trash interceptor that was invented right here in Baltimore by John Kellett and his company, Clearwater Mills. This is a diagram showing how the trash wheel works. First, it's not a Roomba. It doesn't wander around the harbor looking for trash. It is positioned permanently at the end of a river or stream and waits for the trash to come to it. So every time it rains, all that trash gets washed into our storm drains and then goes into a stream like the Jones Falls. At the end of that stream, These orange containment booms funnel the trash to the front of the device. And then a series of rakes and a conveyor belt powered by the current of the stream scoop the trash up and put it into a dumpster that sits on a separate barge at the back of the device. When the dumpster is full, we remove it and replace it with a fresh dumpster. Here's a quick video that I shot on the first day of trash wheel operations. You can see it's a little bit rainy. We just had a big storm, and you can see the trash is already piling up at the front of the device, being contained by that orange containment boom. Those are the rakes that scoop the trash up onto the conveyor belt. You can see this was a very exciting day for us. We were picking up our very first tire. And when I shared this video on YouTube, it received over 1.5 million views. So this was our first viral video. And we had to figure out how we could, as an organization, build on one viral video. So to build on that success, we decided to launch Mr. Trash Wheel as a social media campaign. We gave him a personality and let him speak for himself. He shares memes, he tells jokes, and he educates people about the impact that trash and litter have on our waterways. Here he is hanging out with Bernie Sanders, participating in the Bernie Sanders meme. And more recently, here's an image of Mr. Trash Wheel replacing the Domino sugar sign down at the waterfront. We also get to educate people and share with them all of the weird things that get pulled up out of the Jones Falls, like this creepy baby doll, this high heel platform stiletto shoe. There's an acoustic guitar that we pulled out of the harbor. But by far the most famous thing that we've ever pulled out of the harbor was a live ball python snake. These snakes are native to West Africa. They do not belong in the Baltimore Harbor. It was probably someone's escaped pet, or someone let their pet go. And it came down the Jones Falls stream in a storm and was looking for the first thing it could find to get out of the water, which just happened to be Mr. Trash Wheel. And thankfully, our friends at the National Aquarium came and helped us out and rescued the ball python from Mr. Trash Wheel. Now, throughout this whole social media campaign, we have developed a tremendous Mr. Trash Wheel fan base. He's really become a bit of an icon for Baltimore City and certainly a mascot for the cleanup of the Baltimore Harbor. In fact, every Halloween, we see more and more people dressing up like Mr. Trash Wheel, which is just so much fun to see. People also make Mr. Trash Wheel birthday cakes and Mr. Trash Wheel cookies. And then artists around the city also create Mr. Trash Wheel art, which we actually have a festival once a year to display all of the amazing artwork created using Mr. Trash Wheel's image. But we're not just all funny memes and trash wheel cakes. We do actually do our job. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we've collected over 1,600 tons of trash and debris from the Baltimore Harbor. That includes over 1 million foam containers, over 1 million chip bags, and over 13 million cigarette butts. Then we take the photos and data on all the trash that we collect and work with advocates like this student-led group called Baltimore Beyond Plastics. And we work with them to help pass legislation that will reduce the amount of trash ending up in our harbor in the first place. First, we passed a foam ban in Baltimore City. But what's better than a citywide ban on foam containers? How about a statewide ban? Yes, Maryland became the first state to ban foam containers, and we're already seeing the impact of that ban at Mr. Trash Wheel. We're collecting a lot less foam since the ban went into effect. We also worked with advocates to ban plastic bags in Baltimore City, and we're still working to help pass that ban statewide. So I'd like to leave you with this. You may not know what career path you want to pursue today, but that doesn't really matter. Be passionate about your interests. Talk to grown-ups you admire, and think about how your interests might combine in different ways. I love being creative, I love the nature, and I wanted to influence change. But it took me a long time to figure out how to combine those things into a career. But ultimately, it is your unique combination of interests and skills that will make you stand out on whatever path you choose. So embrace your passions and, as Mr. Trash Wheel would say, keep it real. Thank you.
Baltimore holds a special place in American history. but it's really a tale of two cities, Baltimore, and to the south, Curtis Bay.
Curtis Bay and the Curtis Bay region has been dumped on for decades. People have been pushed out of their communities by developments that don't care about our basic human right to live in a healthy community.
Destiny Watford is a 20-year-old college student and Curtis Bay native. For decades, the area surrounding her neighborhood had become a toxic nightmare of heavy industry, coal transport, and incinerators. It has some of the highest concentrations of pollution in America.
Back in 2012, we found out that there was a plan to build the nation's largest trash burning incinerator less than a mile away from our high school. 240 pounds of mercury per year would have been released, 1,000 pounds of lead.
This type of air pollution contributes to cardiovascular disease, respiratory illnesses, and in some cases, exposure to diesel exhaust has been shown to affect children's cognitive development.
At just 16, Destiny embarked on a mission to stop the trash-burning power plant.
Hi, it's Destiny Watford.
Which is being sold as clean, renewable energy by the developer.
Yeah, it's great. It's great coverage.
Her group, Free Your Voice, began the campaign by going door to door.
I've always been a bit shy, but when I joined the group, I was really challenged to come out of that comfort zone. And I went up to this man's door and I told him about the incinerator. He just said, "What you kids are doing is pointless. Curtis Bay is and always will be a dumping ground, and you're not going to change that." And it was a disheartening moment, but it also lit this sort of fire.
And so Destiny and students in Free Your Voice said, let's do a march that starts at our high school, and let's march directly to the site.
It was something about that moment, about realizing that if we're going to do this, then we have to build relationships. And we have to reach out to our local government. So when we found out that the Baltimore City public school system would be buying energy from the incinerator, we decided to have a presentation at the school board.
Where opinions don't matter, where opinions only die.
Destiny and her group also appeal to other incinerator customers.
Our fate as a city, it involves everyone.
To convince them to drop plans to buy energy from the company.
That our system is failing us and our planet.
Ultimately, 22 customers listened, heard the voices of the community, and agreed to cancel their contracts, eliminating the financial incentive for the company to move forward. It was a remarkable victory, but Energy Answers still holds the lease to the proposed site.
The Maryland Department of the Environment, they have this opportunity to pull the incinerator's permits, which means that they couldn't legally construct.
So, today is a day of justice. Enforce the law! Enforce the law! Enforce the law!
We have to dig deeper. We've rallied together to say that we want positive alternatives in our community. This could be the site of the nation's largest trash burning incinerator, or it could be the site of the largest solar farm on the eastern seaboard. My family lives here, and I don't want their future to be one where a massive incinerator is a priority instead of their health.
For outstanding environmental achievement for North America, the 2016 Goldman Environmental Prize is awarded to Destiny Watford, Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Watford, for being with us today. We're so excited to hear from you. We're so excited to have you part of our Justice Summit. We've heard so much this week, and I'm really excited for the students to hear a little bit more from you. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit more about how you got involved in your community and what made you decide to get involved in your community. And maybe if you could offer any advice to our students and how they could be more involved and more active in their own communities.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I am so honored to be a part of this event, and I hope that my advice can be helpful. I got my first introduction to injustice in high school with the plan to build the nation's largest trash burning incinerator less than a mile away from my community. And this incinerator is one of many polluted developments, or would have been one of many polluting developments in the community, in a long line of polluting industries in my neighborhood. This particular development would have been burning 4,000 tons of trash every day. It was permitted to release 240 pounds of mercury and 1,000 pounds of lead every year. And my community was already dealing with an overwhelming amount of health issues related to the kaleidoscope of polluting industries in my community. So things like lung cancer, respiratory disease, suffering from asthma. According to the Baltimore City record, if you lived in South Baltimore, which is where my community is located, you can expect to have an entire decade shaved off your life. So when we heard about, we meaning my friends and I, heard about the plan to build the incinerator, we knew that we had to do something about it. We didn't know what that looked like. We didn't know what we were doing, but we knew that we had to do something. And so we started with just research, finding out as much as we could about this project, when it started, why it started, who supported it, and we found out that our city government, the mayor, the governor, city officials supported this project that would be polluting our neighborhood and putting the lives of the people that we loved at risk. And so we were hurt, we were angry, and we realized that people don't know about this issue. The people that are living in the community, residents in Baltimore City, don't know about what's happening here. So we decided to talk to as many people as we can. And like us, they were frustrated, they were angry, and they wanted to do something about it. And so we took action. We made videos and told our stories in the media, and made sure that our city officials knew that what was happening was unacceptable. And through this process, we found out that not only were our city officials supporting this project, but there are 22 public institutions. These are institutions that were built to support the public, to protect the public. And among them was the Baltimore City public school system, which we were a part of. The very same institution that was encouraging us to look outside of our windows and think critically about the world that we were seeing were had a hand and could have had a hand in poisoning us. Mm-hmm. And so we spent 5-6 years just organizing, fighting against the institutions that were supposed to be supporting us. And through that time, we were able to convince them to change hearts and minds and change the course of history in our community from being one that is destined to live in pollution, to be disheartened, to be hopeless, into one that realizes that we can be vehicles for change. I'm actually really proud. The new generation of students that are taking up this mantle are having the first ever in Baltimore EJ Summit, which is centered around zero waste and a sustainable future. So my advice would be that whatever it is that you're fighting against, the injustice that you are fighting, or the justice that you are fighting for, start anywhere. Just do something. You don't have to have an answer. You don't have to have a plan. We didn't. But you have to do something. You can't be stagnant.
Wow, that's so incredible. I'm so inspired by your story and what you did. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
How has your experience formed you as a person and kind of projected your life and what you're doing right now?
That's such a good question. When I was a teenager, as most teenagers, my understanding of how the world worked was very limited. I didn't realize how many pockets of gray exist in our world. I was before I had a harsh awakening to the injustices that we have in society, and specifically in Baltimore, and through the world. I view the world as very black and white. Like, if bad things happen to you, it's because you did bad things. If good things happen to you, it's because you did good things. But it's not that simple. We have a society and a structure that benefits off the profit of people. It chooses profit over people. And when that happens, people get left behind. We get communities that are filled with pollution. We get police brutality, and people's lives who are ignored. We get a overwhelming sea of homelessness. These issues, to solve them, they require a huge systematic change. It requires a difference in how we view the world and society and how we treat people. And so I'm really grateful that I was able to help in a small fragment in my community. So to say the least, it was a huge change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you're continuing to do that work. And I think that's what's so powerful is that you. And you're bringing up the next generation of activists, which is more important. I won't take any more of your time. I'm so happy to have met you and to listen to your story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And I'm just grateful for your presence. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention and participation in the Justice Summit today. We are grateful to Ms. Adkins, Mr. Lindquist, and Ms. Watford for their informative and inspiring words. We hope you learned something from the speakers and are motivated to take further action. If you would like to learn more about how you can get involved, please join the Service and Justice Committee on Monday after school in the Testing Center. We'll be discussing opportunities to serve in our local community and addressing some of the advocacy points mentioned in the presentations. And today, we hope you will join us after school for our interscholastic Earth Day prayer service. We will join with 3 other Jesuit schools in celebration and reflection of our common home. All are welcome to attend virtually or in person in the Burke Testing Center. Let us now join together in our closing prayer.
We praise you with all your creatures. They came forth from your all-powerful hand. They are yours, filled with your presence and your tender love. Praise be to you. Son of God, a Christian prayer in union with creation by Pope Francis. Father, we praise you with all your creatures. They came forth from your all-powerful hand. They are yours, filled with your presence and your tender love. Praise be to you. Son of God, Jesus, through you all things were made. You were formed in the womb of Mary, our mother. You became part of this earth, and you gazed upon this world with human eyes. Today you are alive in every creature in your risen glory. Praise be to you. Holy Spirit, by your light, you guide this world towards the Father's love, and accompany creation as it groans in travail. You also dwell in our hearts, and you inspire us to do what is good. Praise be to you. Triune Lord, wondrous community of infinite love, teach us to contemplate you in the beauty of the universe, for all things speak of you. Awaken our praise and thankfulness for every being that you have made. Give us the grace to feel profoundly joined to everything that is. God of love, show us our place in this world as channels of your love for all the creatures of this earth, for not one of them is forgotten in your sight. Enlighten those who possess power and money, that they may avoid the sin of indifference, that they may love the common good, advance the weak, and care for this world in which we live. The poor on the earth are crying out, O Lord, seize us with your power and light. Help us to protect all life, to prepare for a better future, for the coming of your kingdom, of justice, peace, love, and beauty. Praise be to you. Amen.